Today, we're going to explore an idea. An idea so powerful, it quietly shapes how we see ourselves, how we judge other people, and how our society decides who belongs. We're talking about the idea of normal. Okay, so let's dive right into this. I just want you to sit with a few questions for a moment. First off, what if the very concept of normal wasn't something natural that we just discovered in the world? What if it was never universal? Not the same standard for every single person everywhere across all of time. And the big one, what if this idea was never, ever neutral? What if it always carried some kind of hidden agenda? This brings us to the very heart of what we're talking about today. The possibility that normal, it isn't a fact of nature we found, but a concept we created, a decision that we made. And trust me, once you see where it comes from, you are never going to hear that word the same way again. So, if we created it, where did this powerful idea even come from? Well, to understand that, we have to go back in time. We need to look at the birth of the average. For most of human history, people didn't really obsess over being normal. Difference wasn't seen as some problem that needed to be solved. It was just difference. People had different bodies, different beliefs, different ways of living. But then, and this is surprisingly recently, in the 19th century, that all started to change. A subtle but really profound shift happened. Societies began measuring everything: height, weight, intelligence, behavior. And instead of these numbers just describing people, they slowly started defining them. And this is what gave rise to the average person. But here's the quiet trick. The average was never meant to be a human goal. It was just a mathematical concept, a statistical tool to help understand populations. But over time, a really strange and powerful transformation took place. That neutral mathematical average, it slowly turned into a social ideal. What was average became what was expected. And this was the ultimate consequence of that shift. All of a sudden, being different wasn't just unusual anymore. It started to feel wrong. Not necessarily criminal or sick, but just not normal. And that was often more than enough to exclude someone. So this idea really takes hold. But how does it actually impact our lives day to day? Well, it builds into this powerful, invisible pressure. So here's the crucial points. Once a society has a clear, shared definition of what's normal, it doesn't really need force to control people. We internalize the standard. We begin policing ourselves. We start asking ourselves these questions a lot of the time without even realizing it. Is what I'm doing normal? Do other people feel this way? Is this going to make me stand out too much? It becomes this quiet, constant calculation just running in the back of our minds. And this forces us to ask the most important question of all. Who gets to decide what's normal? Because it's never random. It often reflects the values of those with cultural power, the needs of economic systems, and of course, the perspectives of dominant groups. Which brings us to a pretty stark conclusion. Normal is never neutral. It is always, in some way, curated. It's designed to uphold a certain order, to serve specific interests. And trying to live up to this curated standard, well, it has a real cost for us as individuals and for our whole society. Our creativity can get muted. Our unique differences get softened and sanded down. And being truly, fully authentic, that starts to feel risky. But what if we could step outside of that pressure? This brings us to our final section, understanding the freedom we can find from normal. Let's start with a fundamental truth, a fact that just dismantles this entire idea from the inside out. There is no single normal human experience. It simply does not exist. Which means that feeling that so many of us have of not quite fitting in, that's not a flaw in you. That is the whole point. You were never meant to fit perfectly into some artificial narrow box. So the next time you feel that pressure, the next time you hear that word, I want you to just pause and ask yourself this first simple question. Who defined this version of normal that I'm measuring myself against? Then, follow it up with a second, even more revealing question. Who benefits from it? Who benefits from me believing in this and trying to conform to it? And finally, ask yourself the most powerful question of all. What happens if I stop chasing it? What becomes possible then? Because once you truly realize that normal is just an idea, you gain the freedom to decide who you are, on your own terms, without asking for anyone's permission.